Welcome to the 10-Minute Business Insight on MyNewsroom.ca. Joining me today is Eitan Sharir. He's with Dynamic Achievement in Vancouver, and he's an expert in the area of leadership and more specifically, how a leader develops a corporate culture or an organizational culture that is one that's designed to create achievement. And Eitan, thank you again for joining us and spending some time with us. I really appreciate the fact that you're willing to do this. When you were speaking with me and some of the CEOs in Saskatchewan last week, you hit onto a phrase that really resonated with a few of them, and I just wanted to explore it a bit further. It's three words: do, have, be, and you can mix those up. Have, do, be, have, be, do. You've got some real strong thoughts on that. So let's talk about it. Do, have, and be. Now, why did you hook onto those? What do they mean to you? What did they do to resonate with you?
Okay, thank you, Paul. Thanks for inviting me. So the way that I view these three words, and we'll start from the beginning, is I see them as operating systems. And if you can just imagine that each one of us has a certain operating system, just like a computer does, and a lot of our belief systems, a lot of the way that we behave comes from this operating system. And unless the operating system changes, unless we do an update or upgrade, then by and large, our life is going to be run more or less in line with that operating system, plus minus. So there are three operating systems. Let's start from the beginning. The first operating system, which I call the operating system of the masses, the majority of people have that as their main orientation, because we can have a bit of each one of them. The first one is what I call the have, do, be operating system. And it goes something like this. This is a belief system. When I have what I really, really want in my life, then I will do what I really, really want to do and have been wanting to do for many years. And then I will be happy and fulfilled and have love in my life and have a wonderful life. And if you think about this operating system, one of the biggest problems with it is that we are always waiting. It's a waiting operating system, waiting to have what I want to have. And then I'll do, when I have that, I'll do what I want to do. And in the hope that I'll be happy, fulfilled, successful, whatever it is. And because it's a mindset, each one of these operating systems is a sort of mindset, what happens is that ultimately, irrespective of what I have, it's not enough, because that's a mindset that I'm coming from. And so even if I will have, and let's say I will do up to a point, ultimately, and I'm happy, the happiness will be maybe for a day or a week. And then I'll look back into, oh, but when I have that, that's when I will do what I really want to do, etc., etc. And if you think about our consumer-oriented Western culture, is very steeped into this have, do, be operating system, and it cultivates it, it nurtures it. It wants as many people as possible in that, because then we buy more, because no matter what we've got and how much we've got and who we've got, ultimately it's not enough. And that's why the cycle continues. Wonderful for consumer-oriented society. So then we have an upgrade, a big, big, big upgrade in this operating system. And we normally call this upgrade the successful operating system, which goes something like this. So instead of the have, do, be of the masses, the successful people know that I cannot sit at home here and hope that when I have, I'm going to do and then I'll be. So successful people do. They've figured out that in order to be successful, which means have in our Western culture, money, fame, power, and status, I will do. So successful people wake up earlier in the morning than most people. They work harder. They work longer. They focus more. And as a result, they learn more, they train more, they educate more. And as a result, from all this doing and focused doing, they create having. Have more money, more power, more status. They move up the ranks in organizations, etc., etc. And now there's an expectation that when we have money, power, fame, and status, we are going to be happier, more fulfilled, have more love, better relationships, have more peace, etc., etc. Only to find out for these super successful people that when they wake up in the morning one day, they realize that despite the fact that they have so much, have accumulated so much, have got the accolades, have got the titles, have got the big businesses, they still feel that something is missing. And most people at that point in time do not know what is missing. And so what they do is what they know how to do very well. And it's what has helped them get there. And that is they go back into the doing, working even harder, educating themselves even more, focusing even more on very often their work. And as a result, all of that leads to even more having, because that's how the world rewards us. The more we do, the more value we add, the more we have. Again, it doesn't always mean in materialism. It can be in accolades, in status, in whatever it is, even at universities, with more PhDs or more recognition. And we feel very good and very inflated for a while, and with a hope that we'll be happier, more fulfilled. And then we wake up one morning and we realize that something is still missing, and the cycle continues. And I call that semi-slavery, or being in bondage to this thing, this culture that tells us we have to be successful, we have to work harder, we have to do more, etc., etc., etc. Again, nothing wrong with it, but that having will never bring us more peace, more fulfillment sustainably. So the third operating system that I talk about is the be, do, have. And again, we need way more time than just 10 minutes to understand that one, because it's a more complex one, because that one is the one where we go deep inside, where we start with our human beingness, not we define ourselves as a human doingness in order to have stuff. So this is where we go deep inside our soul, if you wish. I don't want to get all confusing here, but deep inside, and we learn to be comfortable in our own skin, in who we are as a human being, that doesn't have to achieve anything, that doesn't have to do anything, that has no expectations from that space. And when we come into contact, or when we are seated in the seat of what is known as self or consciousness, and we experience the peace, the joy, the love, without having to do anything, that's when we use that as a platform and a springboard to go and do and create for the sake of creation, for the sake of our communities, of our families, of the world. But now the doing coming from that being state is a very, very different quality of doing than the one that has to achieve and has to succeed in order to define itself, in order to get somewhere. Because when you come from being, the doing or creating is not trying to get anywhere, because it already is when you're in being. And then, of course, what we know about doing is it always creates having. And that is the operating system that I call the operating system of freedom, because I see and experience myself as a free human being. And then in this world, I go out and I do and create and co-create with others, something that has never been created before, in line with the biggest infinite potential that exists for all of us. And the having will always be way more than what I need and what I want, for my sake, for the sake of my family and my friends and the community, etc., etc. So those are the three operating systems that I talk about and, of course, teach in my workshops.
This notion of being a slave, or a semi-slave, as you call it, to consumption, if I can, and to sort of material goods, we could probably use as much promotion and advertising and marketing on the side of just doing because you be good, or liking yourself, as we do about the only way to like yourself is to buy yourself more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that is what's been happening. So again, I think that's very important. You see, a mind is a very tricky thing, because it likes to go, it's this or it's that. And I'm saying, no, I'm looking for the middle way here. And the middle way is create, have lots of stuff, have lots of money. That's wonderful. Nothing wrong with all of that. The issue often comes when we become enslaved to that, believing that the having is going to bring us the being. And that will never happen. Sustainably, it's impossible. Because think about our past. Think about your achievements, Paul. Even though you achieved and succeeded and felt on top of the world, how long did that last for? A day, a week, a month? And then what happened? Then the little mind came up and said, oh, but that's not enough. I need to do more. And again, nothing wrong with doing more. I'm more interested in where are you coming from in order to do, in order to create. And then what is the real purpose of that creation? Is it for my sake because I want to feel better about myself? Or is it for the sake of the whole, of which I'm part of, and that is for all of us? And that is the biggest distinction here. It's what is the real motive For me, working so hard, creating, achieving, is it for me? Is it for mine? Or is it for all of us?
Great lesson in that. And just as I wind up here, as you describe that, can't help but think that more people die going down Mount Everest than going up. By a count, I think last year it was 13-1. And it just says when you get to the top, it isn't necessarily fulfilling. It's more dangerous coming down. The other side is more dangerous, and you need to figure out something that is more fulfilling on a human sense. Eitan, thank you for stimulating our thoughts on this and getting us thinking about it. I know we'll talk more. Thanks again.
Thank you, Paul.